All right, Brian from Garage Mahal. Today we are working on a Ford Escape, and the booster pump has gone on it, so we are going to basically change that out. Start off with, you need a 13 millimeter deep socket is helpful, and we are going to be basically disconnecting it from the booster pump, and then we're going to go on the inside, and then we're going to basically disconnect the brake pedal and the brake sensor that's in there as well. But I like just to break them off a little bit with regular ratchet. And then I like to cheat a little bit. Hard to get to areas, I like to put a magnet close by just in case I drop that. Kind of as a preventative measure. Alright, so we got that. Next we disconnect the air line. Then the master cylinder comes out. Somewhat easy. Got to disconnect the sensor. That makes it a little bit easier to come out. And we're going to remove the transfilter. Actually, the trans dipstick. Just so we have a little bit more room in here. And that comes forward. And that should give us enough access that we can get that booster pump out. Now, I shot a quick video that I'll show you next on the inside, but basically there's not a lot of room to fill in there, but it's only 4 bolts, and then there is one little swivel peg thing that you'll see in a video that you just have to basically pinch and push out, and then those 4 bolts come out, and then that booster pump comes out, no problem. But so far, pretty easy, and I like that some of the newer vehicles are starting to use these flex lines on the brake. So when you got to do this job, it makes it so much easier to do. Anyway, check out the next part of the video, and then we'll be back. All right, so I'm not going to film this with the regular camera because it's very difficult to get to. But basically, it's your brake pedal. It rides up, and then it has a control arm that goes over here, and that little blue thing is what sets your brake lights off, and that little light blue tab that is kind of in the center of the picture. It kind of looks white with the light on it, but that's actually a little press fitting. You push that out, and then you have, let's see if I can't get them. So you got one bolt right there, and you got another bolt on that side of the plastic. So it's basically 4 bolts, and you can, and there's the yellow one up there, you can kind of see. So it's pretty straightforward. You just got to be a little bit of a contortionist to get in there, but once you get that little light blue tab, you push in on it, it comes out, and then that whole piece will move over, and then your pedal will fall freely, and then you'll have the booster pump piston will disconnect as well. And then you disconnect those 4 bolts, and then that's all you got to do in here. And then you go underneath the hood for the rest of it, which I should be able to show you live. Anyway. All right, and if you were looking for that little locking pin that I was talking about on the inside on the gas pedal, if you're facing a car and sitting in there, this is the way it goes out, and you can kind of see those 2 little tab things on the end. You basically got to push them in, preferably with a screwdriver or a pair of pliers, angle pliers that you can get in there. And then you got to kind of like push it out, and there's actually a track on the inside that holds it. So you got to push the pedal in, and you'll be able to wiggle this out. Anyway, just so you kind of know what that part looks like. Okay, now we got the 4 bolts out. That was a treat in itself. So when you get there, enjoy. But it's doable. So this pump, push the master cylinder down. You can just have enough room to get it out. You want to make sure that you're not bending that back piston when you're putting the new one in. So you got to kind of wiggle and rotate and squirm around, but you get it out. All right, then the new one, brand spanking new. Make sure you have the air hole on that side, purge valve. And then, like I said, going back in, just be careful how you wiggle it in. You don't want to bend that piece that attaches to the brake pedal in the back, because if you do, you can break the seal. So just line it up carefully. Take your time. You don't have to race to get this in. And then once you line the holes up, that's basically it. So it's pretty good there. We're going to go back inside, and we're going to put this back in the pedal, and then put those 4 bolts back in, and then we go from there. But just enjoy and be safe. That's all. All right, I'll be back in a second. Okay, so after you get those 4 bolts in that pin, and the pin's a little tricky, so what I did is I basically kind of just pushed the pedal in slightly, and then you can kind of angle that blue pin into place. And once you do, before you do that, make sure that you put at least 1 nut on the bottom corner of this, and then tighten that down almost to spec, just so it holds it, so when you're pushing the pedal down, you can get that little blue pin in without moving the whole mechanism. Because you push too hard and you don't have this bolted down, it's just going to basically unseat itself and come back into the engine bay. But anyway, now we just basically put the master cylinder back in its spot. Make sure that you're lining the plunger up on the inside, and then you are lining up the bolts, and then it should go in easy. So if you're pushing against it and it's hard, then you're doing something wrong. And then you want to put these nuts back on, and you want to make sure 100% that you have this lined up correctly before you tighten it down too much. So make sure that it feels good, and you can feel a little bit of spring against it when you're pushing the cylinder in. And then you tighten it down hand tight, and then you're going to tighten it down just a little bit more. Let me just get my extension here. And if you got any electric wrenches and stuff, this is definitely a time not to use them, because you want to get a good feel. So you want to tighten it down so it's not restricting both sides evenly. We're almost there. I can kind of feel it getting tight now. Okay, so we're just going to get it snug. We're not going to tighten it down to spec yet. Okay. Now you go in your car and you push on it gently with your hand. on the brake valve. Not a time they definitely go in there with your feet, but push gently with your hands. Alright, so everything felt good, so we're going to snug these nuts down. Torque them out to spec. Okay. And make sure that we hook the low brake fluid sensor up. Make sure you hear the clip snap, and then put your air valve, your purge valve. Now, this is going to be a little difficult to put in place. And definitely not a time to use WD-40 because that will just make it slip out. So you got to kind of wiggle it into place and there. Twist it a little bit and it'll seat, and then we're good. Check your master cylinder, make sure that has an adequate amount, which it does. And then next is going to be turning the car on and checking the brake feel. Well, other than that, this job is done pretty quick and easy. Just needs a little bit of patience the whole time. Make sure you put your transmission dipstick in. And usually what I do in some of these situations is I usually put a paper towel part way down and kind of drape it over so no debris falls in there. But this engine compartment is, it's so-so. I should have did that, but just something for you guys to take a look at. But anyway, that's it. Brian from Garage Hall. Thanks for liking and subscribing.